Tamás Roska has been a gift for many of us here, or for all of us. First we met, myself, first we met in 1962. At that time he was a student, and I was an assistant of Professor Károly Simonyi. The title of my talk is a quote from Tamás. He called in the mission statement of our faculty, he called it that it will be a human-centered, nature-inspired information technology. Nature refers to physis in Greek, that is to say, ta physika. Techne refers to the work of art, the work. And logos is ratio. Therefore, technology is, as a student, Tamás was interested in everything of intellectual beauty. His devotion to theoretical studies were exceptional. He excelled in mathematics and especially in Professor Simonyi's major course, Theoretical Foundations of Electrical Engineering, Fields, Circuits, and Waves. Professor Simonyi advised him to contact me, and a special course on distributed circuit theory, that was my special course at that time for the class, and called my attention on him as one of the best students, one of the gifted students. We began to work together. Finally, this lasted together, closely together, for 34 years. From the 60 years of my career. From 1998 to 2014, at the Information Technology Department of the Pázmány Péter Catholic University. As a young researcher, Tamás became engaged with circuit theory. That was his engagement. The theory of systems composed of, and I emphasize, not by models, but by physically real devices. So that's a network of devices. 1960s and 1970s was the time of the evolution and proliferation of a variety of these circuits, of solid-state electronic chips. That was the time when the chips from the single transistor evolved to almost to the present complexity of chips. The scale of the circuits quickly increased, and it was more and more difficult to do the design manually. It was impossible to design these circuits manually. So, the challenge was to create automated design tools to develop computer-aided design systems for large-scale circuits. The design methodology was separated into two parts. One part was very difficult to build mathematical models of the devices. That was one part. But the models, interconnected models, were not. And the second was building system models of the integrated devices. This methodology for passive linear components, passive linear devices, can be applied always, as proved already in 1959 by Castriota and Herbert and Euler and Carney. However, the transistor is not passive. Therefore, it is an active device. And in 1967, in fact, we show it the first time that for linear active components, the methodology could lead to absurd system models. to models. If you just take the models of the devices and you interconnect them in a network as the components are interconnected, you end up with an absurd model. In 1970s, Thomas started serious studies in nonlinear circuit theory. By the mid-70s, he had become a recognized expert. He identified and looked at fundamental questions with enthusiastic scrutiny. He honestly asked bold questions, for example, what are the fundamental limits of modeling of the systems of large-scale nonlinear circuits? I recall how much had I learned from discussing some of his deep questions in the laboratory. By the mid-70s, Tamás had become a worldwide known expert in nonlinear circuit theory. We went to conferences and he was already known. In 1968, at a circuit theory conference in Prague, there was an American leader in circuit theory called Ernest Kuh from Berkeley. He was the leader of the research laboratory in Berkeley, and he recognized him at a conference in Prague and invited him immediately to come to Berkeley. And this was 1968, Tamás and Zsuzsa. There he met his later co-author, at that time a student, postdoc. This is his picture at that time, Professor Kuh's group, Leon Chua. In late 1980s, the National Science Foundations reopened the possibility to start joint US-Hungary research projects. Something does not work. I am sorry. Okay. Now it's okay. Okay. One of the new joint projects was initiated. At that time, they met in 1974. They met in Berkeley, and when there was a possibility at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences that we are looking for proposals for joint US-Hungarian research network, Tamás and Leon submitted a proposal to introduce, and that proposal first I read analogic, analog and digital together, and sensory wave chips, sensory wave computers, the analogic chips. The fruits of Tamás and Leon's cooperation later became one of the most successful US-Hungary joint projects. From the late 1980s to 2010, Tamás became a regular part-time visiting professor at US Berkeley. Each year he spent at least 4 months, but usually 6 months, at Berkeley, working in that laboratory together with the American group, which had a rich IC laboratory, integrated circuit laboratory. They could build and they could design and build chips. The large complexity chips. So that was about hardware design. 1985, Tamás, I left. That was the year when I left Staki and came and became a member and Deputy Secretary General of the Academy of Sciences. He became the leader, and he changed the laboratory, which until that was my group at Staki. He changed it and introduced the analogic and neural computer, the notion of neural computers, and that was his research group. You can recognize some of them who are here, and that was the group in which finally, after several years, the BiEye, the CNN chip prototyping and development system, and also the visual computer, which is a chip which serves as a camera. That was a completely new concept at that time. And this, you all know these are the most famous publications of Tamás and the joint book with Leon, which was published after probably years. And I would like to call your attention when I heard Tamás first talking about the right and left brain. Okay, 5 years. Okay, so that was a conference that was where they first began to work together with Joseph Hamory and the dual way of computing learning from cerebral asymmetry. That was. And in 1998, he was invited to prepare and to organize the Faculty of Information Technology at the Pázmány Péter Catholic University. And that was when he invited biologists and neuroscientists to join in the teaching and activity of the laboratory. These were the major participants from the life sciences of this department. And the multidisciplinary disciplines and the bionics, the new name was used, and the attention went to the integrated systems of cells and organs and chips. Even the pacemakers, and also that was the vision, that the future human being will be a person who is healthy because there are chips built into the body. But we realized that our students will go to retire only after 50 years, and in 2070s, and we should prepare them for that career which goes up to the 2070s. And if we asked ourselves and began to talk, what kind of information technology will be developed by that time, I must admit, we had no idea. We knew that 50 years ago, but we were aware that when we were students, there were no integrated circuit, no chips, no microprocessors, no mobile telephone, no internet, so how to prepare them for technology? We have no idea. And the specific project type and services will be changing very fast, and the majority of them go outdated relatively quickly. Nevertheless, the disciplinary foundations are invariant of time. And at that time, we had an international people of friendships. We had almost all important circuit and system theorists belonged to this network. We met at conferences and we get together. This is in Tamás' home. Yes. And also Tamás visited us in Notre Dame when we were in Notre Dame. So there, yes. And at ISCAS conference, where he met Professor Moshic, who is now in Israel, and Professor Civaleri, who is in Politecnico di Torino. And also we attended together. Professor Sean Scanlon was a kind of a European, a leader of the European circuit and system theory community, and Professor Fettweis and Sean Scanlon, yes. And it was clear that today we intend to believe that something is true if and only if it can be proved by natural sciences. Yes. I do not think so, wrote Tamás, and I refer to him that the question of man, who is man, that was, and what is the truth of science, and he declared that there are three pillars of the truth of science, science, art, and faith together. And yes, and 1998 was the foundation of our department. But 1998 was when St. John Paul II published 1998 the Encyclica Fides et Ratio. Yes, and Tamás is. I advise the young colleagues, take what I did now for preparing today's lecture. I took out from my collection of Tamás writings, Tamás papers, Tamás books, and they are even valid messages for the today's researcher generations. And he is already at home, but from there, that is his message to all of us. Thank you very much.